didn't lose his smile. He leaned on the doorframe, regarded Barrett with amusement, and then said, "Her head was. I do recall that. Behind the wheel, under the wheel, however you want to look at it. For me."
Is it
Josie's there. Josie's there. Al is there. Bill, Cynthia, Keith Mays.
Whoever's speaking, you're not muted. We can hear you going through the attendees.
Bruce, it doesn't show that you're muted, but I can't hear you. Are you talking?
Not yet.
Oh, there you go. Sorry. Never mind. And Bruce, it's 7 o'clock, and you do have all 5 directors, and Sabrina is on along with Evan and Glory. So
We're ready to go.
we can go ahead and start whenever you want. Sabrina, did you want to drive this?
No, I think I'm gonna let you do it since you put the packet together. That's okay.
Sounds good. Bruce, do you want me to drive or do you want to drive?
Sure. No, you can.
Okay, great. So we'll call a roll here. Director Scheibels,
Present.
Director Barclay,
Present.
Director Kennedy,
Present.
Director Haynes,
I'm here.
Director Williams. I know I saw you.
He's here, he just didn't, he's on mute. There he is.
Present.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. We do have a quorum, so we can call the order at 7:01. Qualifications of directors and disclosures have been filed. Are there any additional disclosures to announce before we get started this evening? Hearing none, we can ask for a review and approval of the agenda that was part of your board packet. There are no other items to add or anything to remove. Just need a motion and a second to approve.
So moved.
Second.
That's
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there anyone opposed? Outstanding. Thank you very much. Next is public comment. So the board and district staff value the public input. Now is the time to address the board on district-related matters. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, just for the sake of time tonight. If you have a public comment or a comment for the board, if you'd please raise your hand, and then we can go through that list. Any public comment? Any public comment? Okay, thank you very much. We can move on then to unfinished business. The first item on unfinished business, the only item, is an update on the landscape committee status report regarding tree
Kurt,
replacement.
there was no public comment, but I do want to let the public know, we don't have that many people who are participating virtually tonight. And I know part of that is because there's been some in the switchover from with the district manager. I know there was a formatting issue with the email list, and I know Goodwin is working hard to get that into their system in terms of email blasts and what have you. But I do want the folks that are here to know that the call for nominations are available for the district election that is will be taking place on May 6th, because there are a number of positions that are terms that are expiring, and call for nominations need to be provided to our designated election official, Sarah Luchin. I think it's February 28th.
Yes, sir.
For either 2-year or 4-year terms. And on our board agenda package, there are 2-year terms, although it says that Khadijah's term is a 4-year, well, it was a 4-year term, but it's at the May election, it will be for a 2-year term.
Yes, sir.
And Michael Williams, his term, he's filling a term, and so, but he will be up for election for only a 2-year term, because his current term, he's filling a term that expires the 27th as well. So in any event, we have terms coming up, and then there are the other 2 terms, or the other vacancies are for a 4-year term. So anyway, the long and the short of it is there are upcoming nominations, and the forms. I think we will be publishing that call for nominations sometime in the next couple of weeks, and I think it's also will be posted on our website. I think, Kurt, you're working with Sarah. If it hasn't already happened, it will happen.
It's already up on the website. Yes,
It's
sir.
on the website. Okay, so
Yes.
I just want people to know that. I should have mentioned that during our public hearing period, but anyway, I just want people to know that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So next on the agenda is the update on the landscape committee status report.
Yeah, and this is specifically regarding the tree replacement strategy that the landscape committee has been working on. I know that Louis and Michael and Khadijah are aware of the work they've been doing, but I've asked Al Morey it's in our board packet, but I've asked Al to basically give us a synopsis of what the committee strategy is at this point, and at least for the first phase, that we hope to be able to accomplish in 2025, of which there is money in the TCMD / Ebert budget to start that process. And if Al could just and some of this he did present at the TCMD meeting that was held last week.
That my cue?
Yes, thank you, Al.
I assume everybody can hear me. Good evening. Kurt, could you display the map that's in the packet?
Yes, sir, I sure will. Can everybody see that?
Can you enlarge it a little bit more?
Yes, sir.
And maybe you could close those bookmarks. That would help too. There you go.
And if you could, if you could scroll it a little to your left. So we get rid of the stuff that's the orange and the blue blob that's on the far left.
Oh, you don't care about that? Okay.
There we go. Okay, perfect. Okay, well, good evening, everybody. I know that you've got a really long agenda this evening, and so I'll try to make my presentation pretty brief. We've been, last year, we requested that the district manager cut down all of the dead trees, the standing dead trees, because we felt that the appearance of dead trees was worse than no trees. And so they did that. They counted that they had removed about 330 plus trees. Then they provided to us a map with a bunch of red dots on it that indicated where all of the quote unquote missing trees were. And I took that map and created this map that's in front of you because I have the ability with my software to do numerical counts and transcribed all the red dots. And what we found out was that we've got a little over 400 trees that are missing. And so our immediate task is, how do we go about replacing these trees? And what's the sequence? The budget was built around an assumption that we would be able to fund a replacement for 100 trees for 2025. And this map is the recommendation for where and how many trees to plant for this year. We have come up with what we call 4 zones. One is the Himalaya Dunkirk road from Green Valley Ranch Boulevard up to 56th Avenue. Second is Maxwell from Dunkirk to Ireland. Third is Maxwell from, I'm not sure what the street is. Is it?
That Nepal?
Nepal, maybe, yeah. To Piccadilly Road. And the 4th zone is Orleans Street, bounded kind of on the north by 52nd and on the south, I think, by 50th Avenue. And what we did is we assumed that we would have a pallet of 100 trees. And what we tried to do was to balance out that 100 trees into the 4 different zones. And it turned out the way we finally came down with the math is that each one of these zones, the number of new trees to be planted is approximately equal to about 50% of the total that are missing. So this would be sort of a down payment on the full 400. And in these areas, it would give us what we feel is more of an immediate impact in terms of the replacement effort by putting about 50% of the missing trees in the ground. Future years will add other areas. I think if we assume, for the sake of argument, that we would be able to fund 100 trees a year, then year 2, we would want to take the same approach and do a 50% coverage. And then years 3 and 4 would fill in the 50% to 100%. The other thing that turned out that we think is a beneficial thing is that Kadisha has talked about trying to get the schools engaged, and a project would be to have them, students, help us monitor how well the trees are doing. And it turns out that these zones are also conveniently located to the 2 schools that are within the area that we're looking at planting the trees. So that's the thrust of what we're proposing. We have a tree replacement subcommittee comprised of 3 people, and yesterday during our landscape committee meeting, we reviewed this with the landscape committee, and I think everybody in the landscape committee feels that this is a pretty good approach for how to move forward this year. So with that, I'll just kind of leave it. I think that's pretty brief. I hope that's as brief as you wanted, Bruce. If there are any questions, I'll certainly take them.
And my understanding is that they working with the consultant that have been retained, the landscape committee has come up with what they think is an approach that will, it's one thing to plant, but to hopefully have them survive.
Yeah, that's true. Both Brittany with Timberline and Sabrina have had some contacts with Davy Tree, and Davy Tree came in, representative from Davy Tree came in and had a meeting with some representatives from the landscape committee, and talked about some of the observations that he had made after touring the district. We also were talking to them about doing soil sampling, because we feel like we've got some variability in soils, and we know that certain tree species don't do well in certain kinds of soils. So we'd like to be able to try to marry soils with tree species that work well in those soils types. Davy Tree gave us a proposal and was asked to, and they are in the process of, they've taken soil samples throughout the entire district. They're doing analysis on them now. And when we get the results of their analysis, they will also be making recommendations on what they feel would be the best tree species to use for the different types of soils that they encounter. The thing that was pretty interesting about that, unfortunately, I was not able to attend the meeting, but what I heard was that they have been providing tree management consulting services to Green Valley Ranch Metro District, which is Metro District just to the south of Green Valley Ranch Boulevard, for over 20 years. And one of the things that a number of members on the landscape committee have noticed is that while they do have some trees that were planted a lot earlier than trees in our Metro District, the overall health of those trees is significantly better than the health of a lot of our trees. And the individual who is with Davy Tree, his name is Matt Shovel. I love his name. It's great association with his company. Said that when he first started working on the area south of Green Valley Ranch Boulevard, the condition of their trees was very similar to what he's observing with our trees. And so what we have been talking about is engaging somebody like Davy Tree to provide some services that we feel have not been provided to the Metro District in the past that may help us a lot in terms of improving the viability or the lifetime of our trees. Those kinds of services would include whether we need winter watering or not, whether we need supplementary fertilization, whether we should wrap the trees, provides additional protection, as well as monitoring how the trees are planted in the ground, whether they're planted properly or not, whether they're staked properly, so that we make sure that the recommendations for planting technique are followed, which is one of the things that we feel has not taken place over the at least the life or the time I've been in the Metro District, which is over 7 years now. And that combination of all those things would go a long way towards trying to see if we can improve the outcome of the tree planting effort and make the most of the money that we're putting into the ground. So that's what we're working on as well.
Okay, thank you. Any of the board have any questions? All right, well, this was just an informational, although it does go toward one of the MOU points that is one of the issues that we're dealing with overall with the consolidation process as well. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Al.
Bruce, if I may speak, having attended these landscape committee meetings, I just want to thank the committee. These are residents who spend a lot of hours working really, really hard on our behalf, and they have done a really wonderful job. So specifically to this committee, thank you very much for your hard work.
Thank you.
Okay. First item of new business then is every district is required to adopt a resolution at their first meeting of the year that specifies the meeting dates and the meeting posting notice or the meeting notice posting location. In your board packet, you have that draft resolution, similar to what's already in the annual administrative resolution. This just has to be a separate one. So we're just asking for your consideration of this so we can get it posted up to the website and be done with it for the year.
So moved.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there anyone opposed? Thank you very much. Next is to discuss and consider approval of resolution establishing policies, procedures, and penalties for the enforcement of the district's governing documents. Evan, I'm not sure if you or Glory or Sabrina want to go over this since you guys drafted it. You're muted, Evan.
There we go. That
There
work?
you are. Yes, sir.
Well, we provided to the board a memo that kind of describes the process and the need for approving this resolution. The policy the board needs to adopt for enforcing the covenants, the way we've set this up, it pretty much mimics exactly how it's been done for the last few years. The main difference being that Town Center has always just delegated everything off to Timberline, and Timberline's kind of been operating kind of in this manner. And so we've written this policy to match that so that there's a continuity with the residents out there. But we've asked, we're suggesting a couple of revisions. Like if you go to the fee schedule, for example, the existing fee schedule expected that if you had a violation, it would accrue against you at the rate of like $50 a day, which is pretty onerous, we thought. So we've changed that. If you look on a page, what is it, 3, 4, 5, I guess, of the resolution there in your packet, we've adjusted that to only $10 a day, so it doesn't ramp up on people quite as fast. And Goodwin will be in charge of enforcing this for the most part. They're the ones that are the eyes and ears out on the ground, and they're the ones who field any requests by residents to make a change to their property. And they also are the ones who will see violations or hear of violations that need to be acted on. But we suggest that you set up a citizen committee to be the fact finders and the decision makers on these kind of violations. And that's something that has not been done in the past. But I don't know, it's how many districts do it. I think it's probably a little friendlier to the community if you have your citizen, your fellow neighbors are the ones that are hearing the complaints and deciding on them or approving improvements, comparing them to the district standards. So there's 2 or 3 parts to this. There's the main resolution that we're talking about, which sets out the policy. The design standards are the same as have been in place for many years. But one of the items we have is this review committee charter. And those would be the direction, the rules that would set up this resident committee. So I guess tonight, the main thing we would hope the board does is adopt a policy in some manner. You can defer your ideas on whether to do a resident committee or not to a later time if you'd like. But I think you definitely need to get a policy in place because there are aspects to it that are required by a change in the law that occurred by the Colorado legislature last year. And these have to do with the rights of your residents to appeal. And more importantly, it sets out the rules on how they will get charged if they're delinquent. So let's say someone does a violation, they don't pay the violation fee and get it rectified. And so the payment of the fee becomes delinquent, and the state legislature has set out the rules requiring certain procedures to go through before you collect that money from the resident. So this policy has its main resolution, then its component parts are the charter for the committee, the design standards, which, like I said, have not changed from what are currently in place, and the dispute resolution process or appeal process. And then finally, the guidelines for processing collection of delinquent accounts. And tonight you need to certainly approve the first item, the resolution for a policy, and the last item, which is required by statute, item D, which is the delinquency policy. But I would encourage you to also do what we're calling Exhibit C to the resolution and Exhibit B. So those 3 parts those 4 parts for sure, and then the committee charter, if you feel a need to do that. There's also plenty of room to tinker with the fee schedule if you don't like what we've proposed.
And Bruce, Ms. Haynes has her hand raised.
I'm sorry?
Ms. Haynes has her hand raised.
Oh. Go ahead, Khadija.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your work on this. I have a question in under subsection 8, the fee schedule, where it talks about the daily fine notice. Can you, when I looked through this, I didn't see when that clock starts. Does the clock start on the date that the letter is issued? Does the clock start on the date that the resident receives the message and we have some sort of some way of knowing that they received the email or they received the letter? I think that is part of the intent of the legislative process that we went through last year, is, you know, making sure that we know when the clock starts, which also I think we need to have a piece in here that talks about repetitious violations, since in this document you talk about going through twice a week. So if you go through on Monday and you go through on Thursday and they haven't addressed it by Thursday, is that a second violation? Just some timelines to help residents understand where the line is drawn would be helpful. Thank you.
Well, we certainly can make some, we can add some language here to try and specify that a little more closely. I'll defer to Glory for a minute because she actually wrote these words, and so I'll ask her if she can answer your question outright. But it seems to me if the violation occurred and is noticed on a Tuesday, certainly that would be the triggering point, even prior to the notice going to the resident. But Glory may want to correct me on that.
Hi, Khadija. Yeah, so I'll just address your questions about the daily fine first. So if you kind of walk through the continuous violation process, there is first a notice of alleged violation, and the kind of process and opportunity to cure as set forth in that notice of alleged violation. Then if the violation continues to exist uninterrupted 30 calendar days after the time period to cure is set forth in the notice of alleged violation. So let's say the notice of alleged violation provides 15 calendar days to cure. Then that 30-day clock starts right after that 15 days. So 45 days after the notice of alleged violation is sent, then you start clicking the clock for the daily fine notice. So let's just say notice of alleged violation is sent day 1. It gives 15 days to cure the violation. The violation still exists 30 days later after that 15 days. So 45 days after notice of alleged violation is sent, then that's when the daily fine of $10 starts.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I see that in there now, but I think in the chart here, which is where people will look, people are not necessarily inclined to look at the legal subsections and read and understand it. So I am happy to pass this as we need to pass it this evening, but I would strongly encourage a wordsmith or some addition, clarification in that schedule sometime in the very near future. So as people are reading their new documents, and thank you for your work.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we can certainly add that just to make sure, maybe even like an example timeline, for instance, notice of alleged violation is sent, then we can just put like an example timeline of when these things would take place.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
I have a question. I'm trying to figure out, is the citizen committee also going to be involved in architectural design review? Would the same committee be doing the enforcement reviews as well as the architectural design reviews?
Yes, I think is the short answer, but it's troubling out there in your district or in your area because you've got these 5 sub-districts and they have different design standards. And so it is a tough task for this committee, which we recommend having a representative from each of these areas. But yeah, when a request comes in to change the color of the house, they've got to go look under the right set of design standards to make sure that, apply those against whatever the request is. So, but technically, yes, the committee should be handling both of those types of things.
Because I'm not sure that was clear, because when I first read Residential Covenant Review Committee Charter, I read it more as the architectural design review. And then now that I'm looking at it more closely, I realize it's more for the enforcement of basically covenant violations. But it's actually, you're anticipating this committee would do both.
They do both. And then your board is really the appeals board. So if somebody is grumpy about how that turned out, then they can appeal to you. But I think Sabrina had her hand up. So go ahead, Sabrina. You have experience with
I was thinking, this looks great. And the committee would ultimately be charged with architectural design. I think once the request comes in from the homeowner, they would go through the process of reviewing it against the guidelines to see that it fits within the community. That's what I'm reading within this. The other side of it would be the covenant enforcement. And if a homeowner is saying, no, that's not a violation issue, then I'd have at least a committee for them to sit in front of and discuss that. Is that what I'm seeing in here? Because that makes perfect sense. And then the
Right,
board would
the-
ultimately be the hearing board if they wanted to, disagree completely with that.
Right. The idea is for any resident to have an opportunity to be heard in front of a body, and the initial body is that committee, that resident committee. And then if things don't get resolved satisfactorily, then they can appeal up to the district board.
Sounds great. Thank you.
So I
I have
also,
a question for Sabrina, the district manager. Can I butt in since my hand's been
Sure.
up before you?
sure.
So, Sabrina, since 75% of the violations happen on the weekend, how many weekends are you going to do? It doesn't do much good on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The violations happen Friday, which I'm sure you've been through the neighborhood and you see the box trucks, the semis, the RVs, the tents in the driveways, all those happen on weekends. So when are you going to, or how are you going to monitor that for weekends, not during the week?
Yep, so outside of the hours that we're not, in the office or during those business hours, we would not be able to know those violations because we're not here during that time frame. So we would rely heavily on the community to provide that input on any violations that they may see. They can do that via town square, snap a picture, provide that to us, and then we can move forward with enforcement as long as we have an identifiable photo and address as to where the violation's occurring. So we
But-
will not be here Saturdays and Sundays.
Okay, so you'll miss those and you'll rely on the residents who just want to get along. They have no problem with the RVs sitting, because I've been part of that with you report. And they don't want to be involved in that. They just want everybody to be able to do what they want, such as yard art and Jesus statues and
Sure.
whatever else there is. So it's really the timeline, which going to Khadijah, it's like, how do you do that? Because as a resident, if you report something like that over the weekend, it's going to take you 2 to 3 days to even find it, because sometimes you don't. You get an email back from Westwind if you file anything, and or even things that need to be tidied up or whatever. It's not just about residence violations, it's other things that weren't taken care of. So where is that timeline? So if I report it on Friday and you don't get to it till Tuesday or Wednesday, then what does that do?
It prompts a letter
got
that
away
goes out
with
to
it?
them. It prompts a letter identifying when the violation occurred. And then it is up to them to identify when they have gained compliance on that.
And they're continuous. They're not just one time.
So then we would follow that schedule to ensure that we're doing the fines per the schedule and then continuous daily fines if it should continue to occur.
Okay, but you have no proof as a district manager that they're still in violation because you don't go on the weekend.
Well, if we're doing our drives and we see that it's still existing, that would prompt us to do the next level of the fine process.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
So here's the other thing, Evan, during our FOC meeting this week, there was a suggestion that we probably should have a member of maybe I guess I'm trying, maybe this is a question for Glory, and maybe it's a question of, because it sounds like this is a committees that you've set up for other districts, other of your clients. And why not have an employee of the district management company? Like, why wouldn't we have I know it has the staff liaison, but it sounds like the staff liaison is not necessarily a voting member of this committee. And I'm wondering why, whether or not we should expand the committee level or committee membership to include a member of Goodwin's as part of the committee. And the other issue came up with, it's going to take a while to get this committee up and running, and what are we going to do for enforcement in the interim? Can we designate by amending the resolution or something tonight to just designate Goodwin as the enforcement mechanism, at least until we get the committee up and running? Because otherwise, we can have the resolution, we can have the fines, we can have the design standards all approved, but we've got nothing, for enforcement going until the committee is up and running.
Bruce, that is what we're currently doing right now. That's the way Town Center does it currently. They rely completely on the district management team to review these and render a decision on them. If it's something outside of what, we're not comfortable approving, then it would come to the board. But for the most part, that doesn't happen. These are things that we can vet against the current design guidelines and kind of roll with those decisions. So that is what's currently happening. So if there was some kind of a addendum or a clause in here that we can add that says we'll act accordingly to that standard until we put a committee in place, I think that would be super helpful.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, Sabrina. The problem is that as of January 1st, based on this whole consolidation process, Ebert's never had operational control of covenant enforcement. We've just amended our plan, which is valid, to allow that, but we've never had our own policy in place. So yes, Town Centers maybe said that, but frankly, we maybe don't want to do it the same way. But I'm saying that if we adopted this policy without an amendment,
yes,
you can't do that. It wouldn't be valid. If someone fought back against Goodwin, tough shit.
Right.
It doesn't happen.
That's what I was saying. Could we add a clause to this agreement that allows us to do that until there's a committee in place?
Right. That's what I'm asking Evan.
Right. We could certainly do that. I understood that the Goodwin contract as it is right now allows them to continue to do it. And TCMD is still, can technically be the operative district that's enforcing through Goodwin. But
I've just been told, they're washing their hands of it, basically.
Well, they're ready to get out of it, I'm sure. And so this is a transition. We can certainly add a paragraph in here that says that until the committee has a membership of at least 3 or 4 people or some number, we can do that. As far as Goodwin, a staff person from Goodwin being a voting member on the committee, that's possible if you want that. That is also a way to establish a committee of 1 tonight with Sabrina as the committee, and then you can add your residents to it over time as you can. So that would be a way to do that. The other thing that occurred to me tonight in looking at the map that Al presented is that you've got a pretty small amount of territory in the subdistricts and a pretty large number of people living outside of the subdistricts. So we currently set it up suggesting that there's 1 from the Ebert at large and then 1 from each subdistrict. And maybe that's not quite representative enough. Maybe you want 2 people from Ebert or 3 from Ebert at large or something. All that stuff is certainly up for grabs tonight if you have ideas on how you want to do it. Kelvin obviously has ideas, but and so anyway, in your discussion, we'll suggest these tweaks and we'll incorporate them, and you can pass it tonight with those changes.
Louis, did you have your hand raised? I'm sorry, sir.
I did, but my question was answered, but I do see Khadijah has her hand raised.
Thank you. I am wondering if we can spend our time hashing out these details a little bit later. I do like the suggestion of having Sabrina be a committee of one, and maybe a very quick note that says we will flesh out that committee by a date certain. So that will give us work to do very quickly to put the rest of it together, but can move us along now. So we could pick a date, I don't know, February 15th, to have the larger committee in place, but to not try to parse out details that we have not really thought about at this time. We have a lot to cover tonight.
I agree with that.
Okay, I've got that down. I will add Goodwin representative as a voting member of the committee and the first member of the committee. We can add that in.
Yep.
Do you want to have any details added now about the composition of representation?
I like the idea of having two members at large. But we probably should have an odd membered overall committee, but with Goodwin as a voting member and at least one board member, that makes it a 9-member board anyway, I think, if my math is correct. Because there's 5 sub-districts,
Right.
two Goodwin, and a board member. So that's 4 and 5, that's 9.
Okay, we can make that happen.
Now,
You know,
February
Bruce-
15th may be too aggressive, only because we got to get people to volunteer from the 5 sub-districts, and we still got to find a way to get
Yeah.
people to volunteer from the 5 sub-districts and get notices out to the 5 sub-districts. Now,
Yeah, Bruce, that's what I agree with Kadisha. I don't think this is the time or the place to try and set 9 as the number. I think we need to consider many things that we don't have access to right now, such as the size and population outside of the sub-districts and whether a 5-3 is really adequate or not.
Yeah.
And I don't think we should get into that tonight, but establish the committee of one, and
Yeah.
that will work with the rest of the board, and maybe a working session or something like that to get it to happen down the road.
okay. All right, so with the amendment of the charter, which was what? That's Exhibit
Exhibit A to the resolution, the main resolution. So the amendments for sure tonight, one is to amend the table to add language about when the daily fine notice begins.
Yep.
And then in Exhibit A, the charter committee will add some language about Sabrina being, or the Goodwin person being a voting member and the initial member, with others to be added as the board determines over time.
Right.
Design standards, any problems with that, anyone?
Nope.
There was a comment in the design standards just requesting holiday lights be extended until after the new year for the stock show. And I just wanted to make a quick comment that we just made sure that the design standards matched what is in newly codified statute. So they are compliant with statute, but that was just the one request I saw.
And it was something Kel put in there. I always thought it was the beginning of stock show, not the end of stock show, but that's,
No, I can tell you as several generations deep, darling, and a trustee of the stock show, I can assure you they can come down after the last day, the last Sunday, which this year will be January 26th.
okay. I don't have a problem with
Well,
that.
Currently, the design standards say 2 weeks after the holiday, which, as opposed to going through the end of the stock show. That's how our district is different than the rest of Denver.
But I think
Well,
Gloria
I
said she
think the
changed that.
stock show is a holiday, so we just like roll it on through the holiday and we're done.
No, this is
They
an
did.
important thing because it's subjects of violation. Technically, it's things that could be violation submittals against neighbors.
Glory, what
why-
did the standards say now?
Right now,
2
the-
weeks after a holiday ends.
Okay, so we should probably change that language.
Yep.
If the board wants it to be till the end of the stock show.
I don't have a problem with that. I don't know if anyone else has a problem with it.
I'm good with it.
I'm good with it.
Okay. We got it.
Okay.
Thank you for that consideration.
The appeals process, I don't know if anybody has, I mean, all of these things can be tweaked over the year or in the coming years. I mean, you got to get a few months under your belt
Right.
of operations to see how it goes. So. And then finally, Exhibit D is the one that was mandated primarily by the statute. So we recommend you approve all those tonight. We'll make those amendments and circulate a final version that's got those things in it.
Okay. I move we adopt the enforcement resolution and all of the exhibits as amended as discussed tonight.
I second.
Can you move that motion? Or do you have to ask for someone to move the motion first? I believe you have to ask someone to move a motion. Chair cannot move a motion.
Oh, I move motions all the time, but okay. Yeah, if someone,
We've never been strict about that, Khadijah, but we can certainly be that way if you'd like.
can someone please do the motion I just did, please?
I move that.
Who would be the second then?
I'll second. Did you get that, Kurt?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And moved and seconded. If there's no other discussion, just to call the question, is there anyone opposed to the motion? Great, thank you. That'll take care of items 6 and 7 then, correct, Evan? Because 7 is actually a part of that initial resolution.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Let's see here. Yes, I think we're in good shape there.
Great, thank you, sir. Next is to discuss and consider appointment of an Ebert Metropolitan District rep to the TCMD Board of Directors.
Yeah, and this is not actually to make the decision tonight. It's just this came up at the TCMD's meeting the other day. And then I found out after the fact that, so here's what it is. A couple of years ago, TCMD passed a resolution, I think it was in 2020, where they authorized Ebert to select a resident member, resident of Ebert, to serve on the TCMD board. With the consolidation process that's in place, assuming that the vote is successful, assuming we approve the consolidation resolution that's on our agenda tonight, and then assuming that the vote is successful and consolidation takes place, the TCMD board will still be in place for at least a short time period after May 6th. As it exists right now, Bill Schmidt's term ends on May 6th. Now, at last week's meeting, he indicated that he would be willing to serve for a short period of time after the consolidation. But I have since learned that that's not going to be possible due to personal reasons. And so we are going to need to nominate a person to serve as the Ebert representative to the TCMD board to serve. It will hopefully be for a very short time period, from May 6th to some indeterminate amount, for some indeterminate amount of time, assuming a vote does take place, assuming we approve the consolidation resolution tonight. There had been two names floated, but we also should solicit, interest from the Ebert community at large. The two names that were floated were by folks on the TCMD side were Al Morey and Keith Brown. I'm sorry, I got to get his name right. He's on tonight.
Mays.
Keith Mays. And I actually talked to Keith last night, and he actually endorsed Al. So I'm not saying, and he's on tonight if he wants to chime in. But also the TCMD board member would serve up to 3 years if the vote comes out no from the residents on consolidation. So, but we don't have to make a decision tonight, but I wanted that on the agenda tonight just so that people would be thinking about it. It's something that we'll need to get information out to the community, and come up with a name that the board, it's a decision only for the board to make, and provide a name to Town Center, because Town Center has to go through its internal process of, taking that person and then giving that person ownership in that small director's parcel, the way they do it on their side. But it's something that we have to do.
So I have a question, Bruce. When we agreed and nominated Khadijah and TCMD refused to accept her. So how are we doing with, how is it going to get through this time, whoever we approve and TCMD says no?
Well, I think at that time, if I recall, they felt that Bill had been nominated by the board, by the then existing board. And when he went on to the Town Center board at that time, it was for a 3-year term, and they refused to accept our position that Khadijah was there to replace Bill. They wouldn't.
But that's not what the resolution said. So I'm just curious as to how it's going to be amended when you have several volunteers that want to take Bill's seat. And how is that going to, if we're still working with TCMD at that time?
My understanding
But
is
it's
that
temporary.
we make the volunteers will all come to us, and we make the decision as to those volunteers
Right.
come to us, and we make the decision, and we present the one person to them.
And if TCMD says no for the next several months, when we have to deal with them for a short time, then what happens?
That I don't know.
What's the remedy to that? Because
I don't
it
know.
doesn't seem like it's gonna happen like their resolution, so. And there was no.
I just know that they haven't
resolution.
rescinded the 2020 resolution, so it's still out there.
But they said no. So how do you know if it's even gonna work? So what are you telling the residents about this when it didn't work before? We did proper procedure and they refused Khadijah's seat. So what makes you think they're going to oblige by it now?
Well, the difference before, I think, Cynthia, was the fact that they had no opening at the time, as I recall. I think Bill was sitting in the seat and there wasn't an opening. I think the Ebert board wanted to replace Bill with someone else, but TCMD didn't have to because the seat was filled. Technically, by the statute, if Bill leaves as of May 6th, and there's an open seat on the Town Center board, if it goes vacant for 2 months or more, then technically the city and county of Denver can appoint a replacement person to put in there. So I would expect TCMD would more likely accept what Ebert recommends, but if there's an open seat. But you're right, we don't know for sure that they would do that, but I would expect they will.
But as I recall on the resolution, it was true, Bill was supposed to be removed and we were able to select a new person. Why else would we do that? Now you're telling me, no, Bill had the seat for 3 years. I don't think that's the way the resolution, but go on. I mean, they'll do what they want to do. That's what they've done. So there's no argument about it. I just remember Khadijah, it's like, why didn't they give her seat? Because
If
she
I
was
can give
entitled
you-
to it at that time.
If I can make some comment now about the current situation, I will.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Just identify yourself, Bill.
This is Bill Schmidt, the person that everybody seems to be talking about. I have a message from Brandon requesting that the next slot be filled by Ebert, according to our 2020 resolution. So that's why I suggested to Bruce that you discuss it tonight at your meeting. That's why it's here.
Thank you. Can I just ask a question? This doesn't happen until May 6th, am I correct?
Correct.
That's correct. It
Okay,
takes some
so
time to
this
get the
is-
person qualified.
Yeah, I understand, but when is our next board meeting?
Our next regular meeting is March, but we might have a special meeting in February.
So may I suggest that we be apprised of this? Thank you for lifting it to our attention. And then let us address that again at the next board meeting, understanding that there is a process that will have to be addressed by May. So I am just of the opinion that anything that we don't need to make a decision about this evening, we can be apprised of it and move along so that we can get to our executive committee work and keep plugging along.
Fine with me.
Okay, so there'll be no action on this item tonight then, and we'll put it on the agenda for your next meeting. Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
All right, great. That's the end of the new business. So now the next item on the agenda is for the executive session. Just need a motion and a second to enter into executive session.
So moved.
Second it.
Thank you. And Evan, if you're okay, I will just use the wording that's on the agenda for the wording of the motion, unless somebody wants to read that into the record.
Just make sure it gets in the record that someone moves to go into executive session for those purposes.
Yes, sir, I sure will, or we will. All right, it's been moved and seconded. If there's no other discussion, is there anyone opposing going into executive session? Outstanding. So we will go into executive session at 8 o'clock. We will discontinue the regular session. Everybody else that's on the call, please, if you're willing to stay around, we're going to take the board into a breakout room along with council. And when their discussions are complete, then we'll come back and reconvene the general session and complete the business for the evening. Bear with me while I start the breakout. Almost there, sorry.
So Jeff, are you healthy again?
Had to take it off moved. My chauffeur and caregiver accompanied me. We went in and they lasered the kidney stone. I'm home, sitting here watching this lovely meeting and don't feel bad. So I go back in on Tuesday for a checkup. If everything's copacetic, then we're done for hopefully another couple of years at least. I do think we're going to do some chemistry to find out what the content of the stones are and see if there's anything, medication or dietary, that would help prevent this from happening again. This is my third bout. The between 1 and 2 was about, best as I can remember, 15 years, and the last 2 were only 2 years apart. So we're not going in the right direction.
Thanks for the update.
You are quite welcome.
Let me know if you need a driver Tuesday.
I have one lined up, but thank you. Kel, I think that there are several things within the covenant that need to be looked at. And I'm hoping that maybe we can get some of those brought to the board, maybe at the March meeting. I'd be happy to share with you my concerns and see what we can come up with as far as recommendations.
You're muted. You're muted.
Now I'm unmuted.
There you go.
Yes.
Jeff, you're referring to the design regulations that were.
Yes, I am. Yes.
Because the covenant package, that's another one that might have a thing here or there. In fact, I was actually, okay, so yeah, I guess it would be some more recommendations for updates, amendments, updates, corrections to those design guidelines.
Let me send you my thoughts and take a look at them and give me some feedback, and we can talk and maybe share with some other people after we've done a preliminary look.
Well, I guess we'd have to, there's probably a documented process someplace of how that document would be the process for getting any changes made to it. And yeah, we could collaborate on our thoughts on that.
Good. I'll send you something.
Are you talking about making changes to the covenants?
No.
Okay.
He said that
No,
was the
landscape.
Pardon, Jeff?
An example being exactly, I came up with the same concern that Kel did with regard to the holiday lights. And I think there's 2 or 3 other things in there that I certainly welcome other people's opinions on whether or not they ought to be changed, modified, or whatever.
You're talking about policy discussion.
Yes, I'm talking policy.
Okay.
Yeah, not things that would need, to be a covenant and votes and all that, other than the board.
That's the document called it's in the board package, the document called, starts on page, I'm looking at it, trying to find it. Starts on page 29 of 69. Hebert Metropolitan District Design Standards, Rules and Regulations.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I don't know if that, if you called that policy, Al?
Well, I think what this is doing is just setting forth the procedures for review. So I think in the landscape standards, there certainly are let's see, where is the exterior lighting?
So that document is supplemental to the actual master declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions. And I just wanted to make sure you knew which document Jeff and I were thinking of.
Well, you spelled it out. That's helpful.
So that, yeah, that's helpful. So in that, it's 13.11, holiday and seasonal decorations. And that was, so that would need some words changing to reference, at least for the Christmas, end of year, Christmas holiday. I don't think we want to leave Halloween decorations out until the stock show.
And I
That
think you want
that
to
would still
call
be a
that,
2-week thing.
I think you want to call that seasonal because not everybody puts up Christmas decorations.
Well, right now it does say seasonal, but so some of the things I think the 2-week is afterwards is appropriate to get it down.
I guess the only point what I was trying to say politically is you don't call them Christmas decorations, you call them holiday decorations.
Well, right. I'm not.
Holiday.
Yeah. But so it's going to be dicey on how he references the stock show in the revised words. That's all I'm trying to say.
Why is it dicey?
What?
You said that's dicey, and I'm asking for a definition of why you think it's dicey.
Well, because seasonal decorations also people put out a lot of Halloween stuff.
But if you use the dates, I think that will signify the time period. Seasonal decorations from this time period to that time period, perhaps.
I think that's good. Well said, Deborah.
Well, anyway, Jeff, you've got other things in that document that you think could stand some update.
I'll send it on to you.
Now, there's the other document that is higher up than this, and that's the master declaration document, which has the actual covenants in there. That document also has a whole lot of talk about the interaction between Town Center and Hebert. Was there any updates, Bill, for, is there any proposed update of that document in the plan, in the consolidation plan?
Well, you can read the consolidation plan as easily as I can. That's in the board packet here. But the short answer is no.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't think that's a big deal, Kel, because if Town Center goes away and Ebert is the successor, in terms of the responsibility for the enforcement, some simple language in the transfer can take care of that. I don't think you need to revise the document.
Yeah, well, there's other things in there like the there's about powers and abilities given to the declarant, which is Oakland.
The declarant becomes Ebert.
Yeah. All that flows through.
The declarant becomes Ebert.
It's a pass through.
Yeah.
Anything that Town Center is contracted to, once Ebert takes over and Town Center goes away, Town Center in every document essentially effectively gets replaced by the name Ebert. In every document, every agreement that Town Center is in, and we don't have to do anything, it's just automatic. That's the way things work legally in any kind of merger.
Yeah. Mhm. Well, see, what I'm thinking of is when I decided to move here, I was gonna buy a house, so I went and found all these documents and was reading them. But I could at least just read them straight up and understand them. Now, if we keep that document just the way it is, it's being effective, some new person wanting to move into the community, is gonna think that there's still this Oakwood is the declarant, and that Town Center still is in the loop. So it's gonna be difficult for new people to understand. They haven't lived through this transition, consolidation, what's real and what's not. That's just
Well, I think the reality, Kel, is that the hurdle to make those kinds of changes is very high. If you're talking about wanting to make a lot of wordsmithing changes, that's basically a revision in the covenants. And there's a pretty high hurdle there in terms of how you go about doing that.
My guess is future documents given to new people that come in would quite possibly get a document that is amended to change the name of Town Center to Ebert without needing a formal approval. This is just a clerical change, administrative change that is probably covered within those documents as being allowed.
right. Because yeah, the clerical type thing to change the names, I'm thinking is not it's not actually wanting to change any of the material substance of the document or any of the actual terms. It's no, it's just changing the words without making any actual changes to the covenants themselves. I don't think that would be a high. Well, I would think there'd be a way to do that without having to be a high standard of, by high standard, you're thinking that a whole lot of people would have to vote on it?
If you change the declarations, you need 2/3, I think, of every homeowner.
Yeah, but I
Every
guess it
property
becomes
owner.
an interpretation of what is if we're not actually changing if we're only editing the names.
I don't think that requires the 2/3.
I agree. So I'm wondering if there's something in between of not doing anything with it and find out what we could do with fixing it. So
Well, I think that's a good question to ask the lawyers.
mhm. Because 20 years from now, if people are gonna try and navigate through with now town centers is Ebert, and they're gonna say, why wasn't all this stuff just fixed a long time ago?
But Cal Klink was not in charge.
Yeah, Cal Klink wasn't in charge.
Hey, Bill, a question. I'm not sure. I have to be honest, I haven't recently read that. I know it's in this packet. But does the term, I remember hearing some conversation about Oakwood versus Clayton Homes. What will Oakwood, if Oakwood were just staying here, is that what they want?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that question.
If the word Oakwood is used in that document, that the name they want, or do they want that changed?
I still don't understand. So let me try and rephrase it. It's a similar situation with Oakwood and Clayton. I'm not sure how much Oakwood exists anymore. And we've been using Clayton as a reference whenever we reference the developer. So I don't know if that answered your question or not.
So if Oakwood is referenced, should that be updated to say Clayton?
Oh, in some other document, whatever,
In any of them, and it, yeah. Mhm.
I suppose. Not my responsibility.
Yeah, like Al said, the lawyers could figure that out.
Is Sabrina's phantom note taker Gina?
No,
No,
it's a program she has to record.
Oh, okay. I thought I
It's a-
heard Gina's voice earlier.
no, it's a software that transcribes.
So she's recording everything you're saying.
That's right.
Which is why I'm not trying to say, I'm trying to not say anything controversial.
Well, I've got this to add. I think Sabrina is the world's best district manager, and everybody else should really appreciate what she does for us. I hope that gets into her note-taking book.
Can't hear you, Patty.
Do you think you'll get some brownie points there, Cal?
Exactly. That's my plan.
Okay. Hey, a totally different subject, but I'm thinking this very auspicious group here may have some help for me. I'm sitting in my basement going through over 2,500 children's books, all leveled, all written, for the years I worked at Scholastic and the years that I hauled tubs of books to Africa with me. I want to get them to children that have been impacted by wildfires, and I don't know how to get them on a truck. Does anybody have any connections through churches, through organizations of like a semi of goods and materials going?
Wow.
Or can you keep your ears open for that? Shipping books is obviously very expensive. These are all sometimes brand new, like 6-packs, we call them, in education, like a teacher will take a small group of 6 kids. So it's 6 of the same titles, still initially wrapped in cellophane. And yesterday, Lewis and I went to the Scholastic warehouse and they donated to me 100 of these, they're book boxes. You can't see them because of my thing, but they're really nice, made for books with lids on, and they'll stack up like on pallets. So my concern now is how to get them there.
Patty, if it's me, I'd reach out to the Red Cross.
Oh, okay.
That's what
And
I would do.
because they're gonna have trucks heading that way.
Okay.
And they may tell you, bring them down and we'll put them on the next truck heading that way.
Oh, that would be great, Richard. That's a good, I just, I'm most concerned right now getting them packed up and getting them organized. And of course, I probably don't have to sort by grade levels and all that stuff, but I'm doing that anyway and getting them all in uniform boxes. So, I hear a meeting going on upstairs. I'm obviously not listening to that, but I will start with Red Cross. I know that in the past, different churches have, done stuff like that too. So if anybody hears of any other organization, I looked at the price for sending via media mail. And I do have some contacts in LA, Unified School District that are very, like the director of math is a friend of mine. And she's like, we have no idea and we can't afford to send them, but we'll take them, you know? So I'm sorting by subject and by grade level. And they're just great resources, you know, tens of thousands of dollars worth of books. So, plus it gives me room to move somebody else in down here. All his stuff, I should say. He doesn't have to sleep in the basement.
Yeah.
And so now.
Well, I think the Red Cross is a good idea because
Okay.
if they don't have something, they probably would know somebody.
Okay, I'm gonna start there. I did try Salvation Army and they only wanted cash. So
Yeah.
right now.
Carol said, bless your heart.
Oh, well, Carol understands how important it is to get books in the hands of kids. I just can't imagine losing, I mean, not just the homes, but your whole school and those teachers who've had, you know, 20 or 30 years worth of buying all the stuff for their own schools. Last I heard it was 7 elementary schools totally gone. And that's what I'm looking at is elementary books. So, okay, thanks guys. Back to the important business of Ebert, huh?
I'm gonna step away to like get a glass of water and check on my little dog. See if it needs to go outside. So I'll be back.
And I'm going to keep sorting books down here, but I'm going to stay on because I want to hear what they're deciding, the meeting here.
Mhm.
So I think it may be, we have to put some software on your computer.
Oh, I can't do that.
Just some mouse software.
I'll probably have to. Yeah, I have to get IT's permission.
Why is that not doing that?
Yeah, I can try it, but.
On mute.
Yeah.
So don't talk.
Sorry, I believe everybody's back in. So we can reconvene the general session here at 8:25.
So we've been in executive session discussing matters related to the language that was in the board packet with our attorney. And Khadija has, we've done some research. I am allowed to make a motion, so I will make the motion.
Okay, Evan, sorry, Bruce, I was just gonna tell you, Evan didn't know how to get back. Okay, there you are.
I couldn't find the
He didn't
little
know where to
X.
go with the breakout room, but.
So the first motion that I'm going to make is I move that we approve a resolution authorizing execution of the consolidation agreement regarding consolidation of the Ebert Metropolitan District and Town Center Metropolitan District as set forth in the board's packet.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. Is there any discussion regarding the motion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Is there anyone opposed to the motion? Thank you very much.
Then the second motion that I want to make is I move that we approve the consolidation resolution as set forth in the board packet, which authorizes our attorney to petition the court to authorize the consolidation
And the election.
question be put to the election, be put to an election to take place on May 6th by the electors of the Ebert Metropolitan District to consolidate the Ebert and Town Center Metro Districts. Is that okay, Evan?
That's correct, yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that as well.
Thank you, sir. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Is there anyone opposed to the motion? Thank you. Passes unanimously. Are there any other matters for the directors to discuss?
The only thing I want to let people know is we may have another special meeting in February, but we don't know the date. And the only potential topic may be further discussion about TCMD representative from Ebert, and also further discussion about the makeup of the Covenant Enforcement and Architectural Design Committee that we discussed tonight. And updates on the consolidation process, because by then the paperwork should have been filed with the court.
Yes, that will occur no later than next week sometime, like Tuesday or Wednesday or something.
Right.
Outstanding. If there's no other items, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Nobody wants to leave. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We'll stand adjourned at 8:28. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night,
Goodbye, all.
everybody.
Thank you.
Goodbye, all.
Bye.